In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, wizards are the best class in the entire game. In Baldur's Gate 3, it's very different. But the good news is wizards are still fantastic. They're still really, really good. Today, we're gonna look at the things that hit wizards really hard. And of course, we're gonna optimize the wizard to its fullest potential. Welcome to Pack Tactics, Shadow Wizard Money Gang. We love casting spells. This video is sponsored by Only Crits, but we'll talk about that later. Kobold! How did they ruin Wizard? Gator, they didn't ruin Wizard. It's just that they're less powerful now. They're not the kings anymore. The AoE spells have been reduced. Control has been nerfed a lot, like Hypnotic Pattern and Sleep. Spell durations have changed quite a lot. Spells that last for a while in 5e now last until Long Rest, which is actually convenient to make summons a lot better. All casters can ritual cast now, including the half-casters, but wizards still need to prepare rituals to cast them, which I think is awful. Then, of course, there's more spells that are now rituals. And lastly, some of the crazy spells in 5e didn't get added in Baldur's Gate, like Magic Jar and Wall of Force. But you do get access to crazy powerful magic items, which we'll talk about later. Out of all the classes in the whole game, wizards got the biggest hit, but they're still really, really good. Now let's talk about the subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3. Some of the subclasses are obviously better than others, but even if you picked a really bad subclass, for example, your class is still really, really good. Let's start with Abjuration, with its main gimmick being the Arcane Ward. It's sort of a HP buffer, which can increase by casting Abjuration spells. Weirdly, and very sadly, it doesn't work by casting shields. I don't know why it's like that, but okay. Anyways, this is one of the best options you can pick, and it's very easy to play. It's probably the easiest. Then you have Conjuration, which focuses on conjuration spells. Right at the beginning, you get Create Water once per short rest. This is really good as it combines incredibly well with certain damaging spells, like lightning and cold damage. Not only do these damages double in damage, but they also cause like an extra effect. Like if you deal cold damage through Ray of Frost, for example, you can freeze the water, and that will cause like a slow effect. And at the same time, if the enemy fails the DC, they can slip on the ice, and that means they lose their turn. Later on, they get a teleport feature, which is rather convenient in this game. And finally, at the end, they get a feature that is only really useful for Sleet Storm, which is, to be fair, a really strong spell. All the features here are good. This is the subclass that I picked, and I think all of my friends from tabletop builds also picked this subclass, which is really funny. Next is Divination, which relies on Portent. Portent is extremely powerful, but you don't really get a lot of it. At level 6, when you short rest, you can get an extra Portent. But that's only if you play the mini games. Like casting a conjuration spell, for example, will get you a Portent. It's really weird mechanics. I've never seen anything like that before. Anyways, Divination, don't get me wrong, this is one of the, or probably the strongest wizard subclass in the game. But you're gonna get the Portent reaction trigger for literally everything you do or everything your party does. I'm not joking. Now, there is a way to make it less annoying, but I honestly think that you're just gonna forget about the feature. And if you forget about the feature, then you just end up as a subclassless wizard anyways. Enchantment is not really good until you get to the high levels where you get split enchantment. The good news is if your DC is high level enchantment spells are actually really crazy. And if you can double their effectiveness, then it becomes insanely good. So I would look at this as like an Act 3 subclass. Evocation, it doesn't feel as good as the tabletop version because AoEs are smaller. Fireball is smaller. So hitting allies is not really hard to avoid, especially if you're playing single player. I've beaten the game twice now, and I still haven't played single player. Jeez, I really should play single player. But anyways, at high levels, when stacked with items that benefit Magic Missile, it becomes becomes alright. The thing is, you probably prefer other items, which I'll talk about later. Illusion, it doesn't have anything good. And it's not like the tabletop where you have a lot more freedom in creativity. I don't know why they even bothered to put the subclass in here, but oh well, it exists. Everything here is bad. Necromancy focuses on animate dead, and you can build up quite an army actually. That's combined with the general buffs to summons and specific items that boost necromancy makes this a really good subclass. This for sure is one of the best subclasses. The only negative is there's a lot of micromanaging, but by the time you get this feature, you're probably used to something like that. Especially if you're playing single player and you're regularly controlling 4 characters. All these guys really do is just take the attack action. It's not really difficult. Transmutation is useful for optimizing alchemy. That's basically it. So if there's like an NPC you have in your camp that you're not really using, I would make them a transmutation wizard. That's all the subclasses. Let me say it again. Even if you pick the worst wizard subclass, it's okay. You're still really, really good. But you can be even better with only crits. Kobold! The dice look like they come from the video game! They are from the video game. They're real dice, and right now a lot of them have big discounts. You can get the Dragon Eye. That's 6 set of dice. That's a fantastic Christmas present for your DM or players. Or you could get the duckies! Yeah, you can get the duckies. Fun fact about that. A whole person caught these cute duckies. Kobold, the poor duckies are stuck! Don't worry, Gator. It says, fear not. No harm comes to the creatures under such a spell. And upon being released, they will return to their lives as if nothing happened. Whew! Thank Tiamat! Yeah, that's exactly who you should thank. Tiamat. Anyways, if you buy this specific set, you get the adventure A Foul Endeavor for free with it. And hey, that's another Christmas gift right there, specifically for DMs. Only Crits has a lot of fun bonuses like that, which is why I enjoy it so much. I love their stuff. I highly recommend you check them out, and if you do, please press the link in the description, onlycrits.com/packtactics. And if you like what you see, get some dice yourself. Use the code PACKTACTICS for a 12% discount. Now let's talk about multiclassing. Some people might argue that Wizard is not worthwhile to play as you can, or, well, I'm not too sure anymore, but you could. Let's go with could. You could multiclass into Wizard, scribe scrolls of higher levels, and then cast high-level Wizard spells without having the prerequisite levels. This is a bug, and I assume they fixed it by now. So I'm not even gonna talk about those builds. We're just gonna move on. The multiclassing that is interesting for Wizard is quite straightforward. The Light Cleric domain enhances the defensive capabilities for a Wizard by a ton. It gives you proficiency in medium armor and shields, and it gives you Warding Flare, which is really good on a wizard. Your defenses are incredible. You don't need to worry about casting mage armor every day. And if the shield spell doesn't trigger, then Warding Flare will most likely trigger instead. Incredibly useful. You also get extra spells, 3 cantrips, for which I would recommend one of Guidance, Resistance, Blade Ward, or Thaumaturgy from best to worst. I am taking into account that Blade Ward is also available for wizards. You also get 1 level 1 spell. Well, that's assuming if you have 8 wisdom. If you invested a little bit into wisdom, that's fine, by the way. You do get more spells. Anyways, the spells I recommend is Sanctuary, Bless, Create or Destroy Water, or Healing Word. Healing Word isn't that impressive as it is in 5e, because you can just put down a healing potion next to someone for free. And then from there, you can bonus action shoot with your hand crossbow, even without proficiency, by the way. Sanctuary is actually really crazy. They buffed it by removing the possibility for a saving throw. I have no idea why they did that, but okay. Sanctuary was already a really good spell. Anyways, we gotta move on. Let's talk about Respecting. So, you can play X-Wizard all the way through, or you can have X-Wizard Cleric 1. It's all up to you, but there is something to consider at higher levels. Warding Flare will become worse over time. I wouldn't say just straight up awful or anything, but it's gonna get worse. You'll also get crazy good robes that you should consider, so that makes the armor proficiency like irrelevant. Then you might as well go straight wizard. As for feats of interest, we have Warcaster and Resilient Con. This is to secure your concentration. Normally the concentration spells are the best spells, and they last for quite a long time, like usually like 10 rounds. But if you get hit, you know, you take damage and there's a chance you might lose that concentration. So it's really important to secure it. Alert is also a really strong option, which is a lot better in Baldur's Gate 3 actually, now that I think about it. But Kobold, why is it a lot better? Check out my top 10 must-know changes if you want to know more about that. We gotta continue to Wizard. Lucky is not really great in this game, as in instead of a reroll after the fact, it is advantage before you roll. And then we've got Dual Wielder. I've heard a few people talk about this. It allows you to dual wield magical staves, and it gives you a +1 bonus to AC. If you're not multiclass into Cleric, this can be a good deal. Now we get into the fun stuff. Wizard spells. I'm gonna give you some of the top contenders for each level and leaving the actual decisions to you. For cantrips, I recommend Ray of Frost, Firebolt, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Acid Splash. Ray of Frost works super well with the wet condition. That's double the damage. Or if there's areas where there's water, you can freeze the water and that will cause difficult terrain and they might slip. I talked about that before, but don't underestimate Control. Control is really powerful in this game. In 5e, Control is the king of the game. I would say it's basically the same thing here as well. Anyways, Minor Illusion can group up enemies, and Acid Splash is convenient when there's multiple enemies grouped up with low HP. Now to first level, let's start with Rituals. Find Familiar, Enhanced Sleep, Longstrider, and Featherfall are fantastic. There is a set of boots in the Arcane Tower that gives you at-will Featherfall. If you get that item, you can easily just swap out that spell then. There's also the Summon Quasit. It's a stronger Find Familiar. It can turn invisible and close doors for you. You can find that in the basement in the Blighted Village. Now for the non-ritual spells. You should consider Shield, Ice Knife, Thunderwave, and Mage Armor, depending on the build. Ice Knife creates a big prone area, and Thunderwave can knock people off of things. If you don't have that one level in Cleric, always cast Mage Armor at the start of the adventuring day. Do not cast this in combat. Always cast this out of combat. And don't forget about it. And with Thunderwave, do not run into melee just to use it. You might get screwed over by that. Like if they succeed on the save and they don't fall off the cliff, for example, that is gonna hurt you a lot. And especially if you don't have your Mage Armor active or Medium Armor and Shield. For second level spells, consider Darkness, Shatter, and Cloud of Daggers. Darkness and Cloud of Daggers especially, the latter being buffed a lot compared to the 5e version. It does damage when you put it on people initially. In 5e, it doesn't do that. So basically, it doubled in power. It's also very optimal to place it at like a doorway to funnel the enemies, so they have to go through the Cloud of Daggers. That's how you cast Control. Darkness is basically your emergency cover. That's why it's really handy. It's basically like a rope trick from 5e. You also have Web on the list, but Web is actually not that good on a wizard. It's nerfed in Baldur's Gate because it's smaller, but at the same time it got boosted elsewhere, as in druids and rangers can cast this basically at will, anytime, which is insanely strong. If you do take advantage of webs on like another build, do not burn the webs. Restrain condition is really strong, and so is difficult terrain. It's better than burning, but that's another class. Let's just move on. For third level spells, look at Sleet Storm, Counterspell, Fireball, and Haste. In 5e, Haste is garbage because it only gives you like one attack. It also gives other bonuses, but it's still garbage. In Baldur's Gate, it actually gives you multiple swings or shots or whatever. It's really good when you cast this on a Marshal, Paladin, or Ranger, that sort of stuff. A main damage dealer. Sleet Storm is your massive control spell. This is your bread and butter shutdown. If you combo this with Hunger of Hadar, you can basically microwave almost every encounter in the whole game. You just automatically win. If you place it super well, it will make all the melee enemies irrelevant to the fights. They've already lost. For fourth level, look at Conjure Minor Elemental, Wall of Fire, and maybe Dimension Door. I never used Dimension Door, but you might need it. it. As for conjure minor elementals, I use the ice methods. You can try the other options if you want, but I think the ice methods are the best ones. What sucks about them is they can't sneak though, which is really annoying. They also might explode on you if they die. If your spell save DC is insanely high, then you should look at Phantasmal Killer. This becomes a fantastic single target shutdown spell. If you cast this on an enemy, they can't move, they take 4d10 damage, and they have disadvantage to ability checks and attack rolls. Like I said before, if your DC is so insanely high, like this basically becomes your new Wall of Force spell. I'm kinda sad that Wall of Force didn't make it in the game. Oh well. For 5th level spells, look at Conjure Elemental, which has a really good upcast. End Planar Binding or Dominate Person if your DC is high. The best summon is the upcast version. It's the Water Myrmidon. It's really good. As for 5th level cast, I didn't get to experiment too much with it. But I think in general, the Air Elemental is the best one for 5th level. But if you can get the Water Myrmidon, then get the Water Myrmidon. For 6th level, look at Globe of Invulnerability and Chain Lightning. I think they're kind of straightforward. Now we're gonna get into the spoiler stuff because there are some spells that are really good and you get them very late. So basically from here, everything is spoiler. Skip to this timeline if you don't want to see any spoilers, I guess. There's a scroll in Act 3 that allows you to summon a diva with a 5th level slot rather than a 6th level slot like a cleric would do. There's also another scroll in the same area which is basically a better magic missile called Artistry of War. Both of these are in the Sorcerer's Sundries, this building right here. It's very easy to find. You have to break into the vault. Basically, you pick up the keys or whatever, read the notes, and then you press this book over here, and then the portal opens. If you go forward and through this wall, you'll find a book that gives you the Diva Scroll. There's a lot of good loot here and hidden stuff, so you might want to spend some extra time here scanning the walls. Behind the portal, go up to this wall, and if you succeed on the perception check, you can click this button, then go forward and you'll find a book in a display case. That book gives you Artistry of War. But Kobold, you keep talking about high spell DCs! How do you get that? In Act 1, there's a hobgoblin vendor named Blurg at the Myconid colony. He sells a staff called Melf's First Staff, which gives a +1 bonus. This guy is really easy to find. In Act 2, there's Ketheric's shield. You're not gonna miss that. And then there's the Fistbreaker helm in Moonrise Towers. It's sold by Lan Trav, who's also really easy to find. He's like right at the entrance. Both of these items also grant a +1 bonus. There's also a helmet of Arcane Acuity. It's in the Mason's Guild basement, which can be found over here. There's an encounter inside, and once you cleared out the encounter, there should be a hidden wall somewhere, and you'll find it immediately. This item temporarily increases your spell save DC depending how often you hit with your weapon attacks. In Act 3, Gortash has the Gauntlet of the Tyrant. That gives you a +1. You need to kill him for it, obviously. In Sar's Palace, there's Woe. It's a quarterstaff. You need to kill Cazador for it. It's also a +1. This place can be found over here. I didn't think it was very obvious when I did it the first time, so you basically climb this guard tower here, and then you'll find it immediately. This guard tower is basically like right across Sorcerer's Sundries. Right next to the Basilisk Gate, there's this temple called Stormshore's Tabernacle. In the basement, you'll find the Amulet of the Devout immediately. This gives a +2 DC bonus. In Sorcerer's Sundries, there's the Armor of Landfall for a +1. You just buy it at the front desk. There's also the Robe of the Weave and the Marco... well, whatever that staff is called. Both of those things, they give a +1 bonus. They are in the Sorcerer's Sundries Tower, and you can find them down here where the globe is. The Hood of the Weave is in Philgrave's mansion. It gives a +2 bonus. It's sold by the Mummy Lord. The mansion is south of Sorcerer's Sundries. You can find the Helldusk Gloves and the Staff of Spell Power at the House of Hope. Both of them give a +1 bonus to your DC. To get to the House of Hope, you need to go to the Devil's Fee north of Sorcerer's Sundries, and then go upstairs and do the ritual. There's a lot more to it, but let's not spend 20 minutes on this. You know where to look. And finally, the Cloak of the Weave and the Caitiff Staff is sold at the front desk at Devil's Fee. Both of them are also a +1 bonus. She won't sell you these items immediately. You still gotta do the House of Hope quest, and I think like midway she'll actually sell you stuff, because she gives you like a quest involving the House of Hope. That's all the items. Depending on the party, you might want to split up the items to different characters. But what me and my friend did, we just put it on one wizard and they just used it for shutdown. The DC was like 26 or 27. I don't have that save. That's my friend's save. So I can't tell you exactly what the DC is. But it's insanely high and everything's gonna fail it. So that's how you optimize a wizard. When you have all of these items, or even half of these items, I think you've beaten the game by that point. Anyways, end the video. For those playing the new Honor mode, I wish you good luck. One last thing, I hope I earned your subscription. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye!